When Daniel told his wife Claire he felt like a ghost in their marriage, she didn't flinch. She told him to get lost. But Claire had no idea that her cold words would spark a quiet, calculated revenge. One that didn't involve yelling or cheating, but something far more powerful: absence. And it was that silence that finally made her see what she'd taken for granted. Daniel woke up early that morning, like always. He made coffee, scrambled eggs, and placed Claire's usual breakfast on the table. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't angry either. Just tired. Tired in a way that had settled deep over the past year. As Claire sat down across from him, absorbed in her phone, Daniel finally spoke. "I miss you," he said gently. "I miss us. Lately it feels like I'm just background in your life." Claire didn't even look up. "Not this again," she muttered, setting her phone down with a sigh like she'd just been asked to take out the trash. Daniel kept his voice steady. "I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm telling you I feel alone, like I'm disappearing in this marriage." She looked at him then, eyes hard. "You want me to validate your feelings before I go conquer the world? Daniel, I don't have time to coddle a man who needs constant emotional stroking. I have goals. You have dishes and dreams." Her words hit like a slap. Not loud, not dramatic, but final. He stared at her. "Do you even care?" Claire stood up, grabbed her laptop bag, and without another word said, "Your desires are problematic. Get lost." Then she walked out the door. The eggs were still steaming, her coffee untouched. Daniel sat there, gripping his fork like it could somehow hold together the pieces of a life that had just cracked. No yelling, no accusations. Just a quiet confession, rejected like a nuisance. That was the last morning he made her breakfast. Claire had always been the ambitious one, the one with the career, the awards, the nonstop calendar. Daniel was the support beam, never flashy, but always there. He ran the errands, paid the bills, tracked the birthdays, managed the little things that made her life look effortless. But now he was a burden, a man too emotional, too needy, too human. That night, Daniel didn't text her sweet dreams like he always had, even after arguments. He didn't wait up to make sure she got home safe. Instead, he sat alone in the guest room and listened to the silence she left behind. It was louder than any fight they'd ever had. He didn't rage. He didn't cheat. He just stopped. He opened her calendar app, one he'd kept synced with his for years. Deleted. Her standing salon appointments? Gone. Auto-renewed subscriptions? Canceled. The carefully curated grocery list they'd built together? Archived. No more almond milk. No more weekly quinoa deliveries. That night, Daniel moved into the guest room with his pillow and toothbrush. No note, no announcement, just space. The next morning, Claire rushed around the house, late for a meeting, her hair damp, hunting for her keys. She passed him in the hallway without a word, and Daniel didn't offer help. For the first time in years, he didn't prep her day. There was no lunch bag waiting, no sticky note reminding her of her 10 a.m. Zoom call. No coffee. Claire didn't notice. That's what hurt the most. Daniel had been invisible for so long that his actual absence was just absorbed into her routine. Or maybe more truthfully, she'd never really noticed him at all. But that was going to change. Not through shouting, not through cruelty, through stillness, through letting her feel what it was like to exist in a home where no one had your back, where the gears didn't turn unless someone oiled them, where support wasn't just a given, it was a choice, and one she'd never had to make herself. The unraveling had begun. It didn't take long for the silence to start speaking. By day 2, Claire texted him, "Did you forget to reorder the quinoa?" Daniel saw the message, then archived it. On day 3, "Did you see the reminder about the dry cleaning pickup?" He replied, "Not my responsibility anymore." She didn't respond. That night, she stood in the guest room doorway, her arms crossed. "Why are you being so petty?" Daniel didn't flinch. "I'm giving you the space you asked for. No cheerleading, no reminders, no support. Just me, out of your way." She stared like she couldn't decide whether to argue or retreat. She chose the latter. The door closed without a word. What followed wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was slower, almost invisible to an outsider. But Daniel saw it all. The tiny moments where the world she'd once glided through started pushing back. She ran out of her specialty cereal by Thursday, missed a salon appointment on Friday, one he used to manage. Saturday morning, she scrolled through her phone in frustration, swiping through calendar events she no longer had synced access to. She missed her driver's license renewal, then blamed the DMV. Daniel said nothing. He'd spent years managing the unseen load, refilling prescriptions, flagging important emails, prepping dinners that let her hit spin class without worrying about what was on the table. Now every friction she felt was a gear he no longer turned. She noticed eventually, not all at once but in glances, in the way she paused when passing him in the hallway, in the way her texts became shorter, then stopped altogether. Her mother, Margaret, came by unannounced the next weekend, flowers in hand, smile uncertain. Daniel greeted her politely, offered tea, and returned to his reading. Claire stayed tense through lunch, trying to sell a version of the story that made her sound misunderstood. "I just need space," she told Margaret. "He doesn't get that." Margaret nodded, but her eyes followed Daniel as he moved through the kitchen. Quiet, focused, unbothered. She saw the man who once made Sunday pancakes and now barely spoke. She saw a husband who'd stopped trying. After dessert, as Claire stepped outside to take a call, Margaret turned to Daniel. "You seem calm." "I am. She didn't tell me everything." "She wouldn't." "You've always been kind to her," Margaret said. "I was. I think she mistook that for weakness." Margaret didn't defend her daughter. That said more than words. The next morning, Claire announced, "I'm hosting a dinner for a few colleagues this Friday." Daniel nodded. No offer to help, no suggestions, just a nod. Claire moved through the week trying to recapture a version of herself she hadn't used in years. The confident planner, the flawless host, the woman who didn't need backup. Friday came fast. Daniel stayed in the guest room, headphones on, while Claire scrambled in the kitchen. He didn't intervene when she cursed at a frozen entree or spilled sauce on her notes. He didn't comment when she opened the door to her guests with a forced smile and no scent of dinner in the air. At 7:25, one of her guests knocked on his door. "Sorry, Claire said you might know where the wine opener is." He handed it over without a word. 10 minutes later, he heard glass break, followed by hurried footsteps, then quiet crying. When the guests left early, Daniel found Claire alone in the bathroom, sitting on the floor, shoulders slumped. She didn't ask for comfort. She just whispered, "Everything slipped. I used to be good at this." No, he thought, we used to be good at this. "I forgot the wine pairing, burnt the chicken. Even Jenna left early." He said nothing. Claire sat in that silence longer than ever before. For the first time, she wasn't defensive. She was unraveling. But Daniel didn't move toward her. This wasn't punishment. It was the consequence of years spent believing emotional labor didn't count. And now she was starting to understand its weight. Claire didn't mention the dinner party again. She didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't even try to save face. She just went quiet. Not her usual confident quiet, the kind that signaled control, but a brittle silence that came from not knowing what to do next. Daniel stayed the course. He didn't re-engage. He didn't return to old routines. The distance between them wasn't filled with tension. It was hollow, unspoken, and loaded with things neither of them had the courage to unpack yet. The following week, Daniel removed himself from her family's WhatsApp group. He didn't send the usual hiking photos or job updates. He didn't respond when her cousin tagged them in a shared memory. No announcement, no drama, just a clean exit. Claire noticed within hours. She stood in the hallway, phone in hand, visibly confused. "Why did you leave the group?" Daniel, still finishing his coffee, didn't look up. "Didn't feel like I belonged there." Her mouth opened to argue, but she stopped. The sentence she'd planned died in her throat. She turned away without another word. It was working, not as revenge, but as revelation. The scaffolding that held up her day-to-day life had quietly vanished. The reminders, the prep work, the emotional buffer. Now Claire was navigating alone, and she wasn't prepared for it. She missed another meeting, forgot to charge her laptop before a pitch call, sent an email to the wrong client. Small things, but they stacked. Her performance didn't collapse. It just faltered. And that, for someone who built her image on efficiency and control, was enough to shake her. That Friday, Daniel watched her move through the kitchen like someone on a delay. She opened a cabinet, forgot what she needed, and closed it again. The fridge buzzed behind her. She looked tired, not physically, but in a way that said she'd spent the week trying to put out fires she used to pretend didn't exist. She didn't ask for help, but she also didn't pretend everything was fine. That night, Claire stood outside the guest room again. This time she didn't knock. She just stood there, like a kid outside a principal's office. "You haven't spoken to me in days," she said quietly. Daniel closed his laptop. "We've spoken." "You know what I mean." He waited. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. The silence. The coldness. "This isn't who you are." That line struck something in him. Not anger, just clarity. "You said my desires were problematic," he replied. "You dismissed me when I was asking for connection. Not just once, Claire. Repeatedly. I was overwhelmed. I didn't mean to shut you down." "You didn't just shut me down. You mocked the part of me that was trying to keep us together." She looked down. Her voice faltered. "I thought you were trying to make me feel guilty. I thought, if I gave in, I'd lose myself." Daniel nodded slowly. "You didn't want a partner. You wanted applause. Someone to orbit around you, making sure everything ran smooth, while you chased the version of yourself that looked good on paper." "I didn't realize how much you held together," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything's harder without you." He didn't gloat. He didn't soften. "You didn't want a husband," he said. "You wanted a mirror." The room stayed still after that. No raised voices, no storm, just the kind of silence that made you look at your own reflection a little longer. The next morning, Claire was up before him. She didn't speak, but she placed a familiar mug on the table. His mug, filled just the way he liked it. She didn't say it, but Daniel understood. The shift had begun. Not because she wanted to win him back, but because finally she saw what she had lost. Claire didn't expect forgiveness overnight. She didn't ask for it. What changed wasn't dramatic. It was in the details, the way she hesitated before speaking, the way she lingered when entering a room Daniel was in. Her energy shifted from defensive to cautious, then quietly respectful. Daniel didn't immediately respond to her efforts. He'd spent too long being invisible to jump back into the role of fixer. This wasn't about being right. It was about being seen. And if she couldn't offer that without needing something in return, there was no going back. Over the next few days, Claire attempted things she hadn't touched in years. She tried planning meals, responding to family group chats, and handling her own calendar. She even tried to repair the small systems Daniel had once run in the background, but nothing moved as smoothly. On Wednesday, she burned another dinner. She didn't say anything, just quietly opened a window to clear the smoke. Daniel remained in the guest room. He didn't gloat, didn't interfere. He simply let her learn what living without support looked like. One night, after cleaning up alone, Claire knocked on his door. "Can I sit?" Daniel nodded. She sat across from him, fidgeted, then looked him in the eye. "I don't know how to fix this, but I don't want to keep pretending nothing broke." Daniel stayed quiet. "I thought I was strong because I didn't need anyone," she said. "I thought relying on someone made me less." He finally spoke. "You didn't just avoid relying on me. You erased the fact that I ever mattered." Claire nodded slowly. "I see that now, and I know saying sorry doesn't undo it, but I needed to say it anyway." Her voice wasn't shaky. It wasn't forced. It was steady, like someone who had stopped trying to control the narrative. Daniel believed her, but belief didn't mean surrender. It meant acknowledgement, recognition, and for now that was enough. That Friday, Claire skipped her usual networking dinner and stayed home. She made them both tea, quietly without fanfare, and placed it on the table between them. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't analyze every misstep. They sat in shared silence, one that wasn't loaded with tension, but with a cautious new rhythm, like two people walking unfamiliar ground, careful not to slip. The next morning, she folded the laundry and left Daniel's clothes neatly on the guest bed. She didn't say anything, didn't ask if he noticed, but he did. Later that day, she returned his old calendar alerts to the shared app. Not the ones she needed, but the ones he used. Trash pickup, oil change reminders, prescription refills, little tasks he once handled alone. This time she shared the load. She didn't announce it, she just did it. That night, Daniel found a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. You deserve to be seen. I didn't see you until you disappeared. I want to try again. This time as equals. There was no signature, just her handwriting and the space it occupied on the page. Daniel read it twice. Then he placed it back down. He didn't text her, didn't knock on her door. But he didn't return to the guest room that night. He sat on the living room couch waiting, not out of hope, not out of punishment, just waiting to see if she would join him, not because she needed something, but because she finally understood what partnership meant. And an hour later she did. Claire sat beside Daniel on the couch, leaving just enough space between them to acknowledge how much had changed. She didn't reach for his hand. She didn't try to fill the silence with explanations or apologies. She simply sat with him, present and still. It was the first honest moment they'd shared in weeks. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The television was off. Phones were put away. The only sound was the occasional creak of the house settling around them. Then Claire said, I've been thinking about that morning. Daniel didn't ask which one. He knew. I was cruel, she continued. Dismissive. I didn't even try to understand. You said something vulnerable, and I shut it down like it didn't matter. Daniel looked ahead. It wasn't the words, it was the message. That I didn't matter. She nodded. I thought I was standing up for myself, but I wasn't. I was just trying to win, and in the process I treated your love like a weakness. He finally looked at her. And now I see that what I called neediness was connection, what I called emotional labor was partnership, and what I thought was control was actually care. Daniel didn't respond right away. He wanted to believe her, but belief takes more than clarity. It takes consistency. Over the following days, Claire didn't make grand gestures. She made small ones, and they stuck. She woke up early and handled breakfast for the first time in years. She took ownership of her schedule without relying on Daniel to manage it behind the scenes. She reached out to her mother to explain, not justify, what had happened. She stopped trying to fix the past and started showing up in the present. Daniel remained cautious, but not distant. He watched. He listened. He paid attention to whether her change was real or reactionary. It wasn't perfect. She slipped, forgot things, got frustrated, but she didn't retreat into blame. She didn't make him the enemy. One night as they cleared the table together, Claire said, I don't expect things to go back to how they were. Daniel nodded. Neither do I. I want something better, she added, but I know I can't build that unless I start by earning it. That was the difference. Before, Claire saw love as something she had to perform around. Now she understood it was something she had to participate in. Weeks passed. The guest room stayed empty. Their conversations grew less formal, less about fixing and more about sharing. One rainy morning, Daniel walked into the kitchen to find Claire already there, pouring his tea. She didn't say a word, just handed him the mug and waited. He took a sip. It was perfect. Thank you, he said. You're welcome. She stood beside him, not demanding anything, not performing, just being there, fully, finally. And that morning, for the first time in a long time, Daniel believed her, not because she said the right things, but because she changed when it would have been easier not to. That's what real accountability looks like. Not a performance, but a shift in how you move through the world. Claire didn't just want Daniel back. She wanted to become someone worthy of the version of him that had always shown up, even when she hadn't. It took time and work and truth, but they didn't rebuild what they had. They built something new, together.